I didn't want to go back out. My shoes were already off and the house had settled into its usual stillness. But when I reached for my phone to plug it in, my hand hit an empty table. I checked my coat, my purse. Nothing. The last place I'd used it was at the bistro, right before dessert. I must have left it there. The streets were quiet by the time I pulled up in front. Just a few stray leaves skittering across the sidewalk. The restaurant windows glowed faintly, tables half cleared inside. Skylar, the young waitress from earlier, was wiping the counter. She looked up as I knocked, her eyes widening. She rushed over and unlocked the door, but as soon as I stepped inside, she turned and locked it again. I blinked. "Everything all right?" She nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yes. I mean, your phone is in the office, but before I give it to you, I need you to see something." The way she said it, like someone asking you to sit before delivering a blow. I hesitated. "What is this about?" Skylar's hand trembled slightly as she motioned toward the hallway. "Please, Ms. Quinn, just promise you won't faint." My feet felt heavy as I followed her past the empty dining room and into the back office. It smelled like old receipts and lemon floor cleaner. She turned the small monitor on, clicking through folders until she found the one labeled New Year's. Private event. "It's from just after you left." About 10 minutes later, she whispered. They didn't realize the mic on table 6 was still live. I saw my family, Emery, Cade, Noah, laughing, raising their glasses, relaxed in a way they never were when I was around. The sound clicked on. Finally, Emery exhaled, smiling. "She's gone." Skylar paused it there, eyes scanning my face. "Do you want me to keep playing it?" I looked at the frozen screen. My daughter mid-laugh, my son-in-law leaning in, my stepson pouring more wine. And I said, "Yes." Skylar pressed play again. Emery leaned back in her chair, her hair pinned up in the same rushed bun she always did when she wanted to look effortless. "Honestly, she's barely useful now," she said, reaching for the wine. "Half the time she doesn't even realize we're redirecting the mail." Cade snorted. "As long as she keeps writing checks, let her think she's still queen of the family. We'll flip the lake house first. That thing's a gold mine once we tear down those dusty curtains." They laughed. All of them. Noah, still in his buttoned vest, lifted his glass. "To the last holiday with the old lady in charge." He clinked it against Emery's. "Next year, we do it without the guilt trip or her casserole." Skylar glanced at me, but I didn't move. I sat very still, my fingers tightening against the sides of the chair. The cushion gave a little under my grip. Emery's voice was softer in the next clip. "We'll ease her into it. First the retirement home tour, then the papers. If she resists, Noah's got the healthcare evaluation ready. Says she's showing signs." She actually used air quotes. "She won't fight," Cade added. "She never has." Skylar paused the video. My mouth had gone dry, but my voice came out clear. "Keep going." A pause, then a quiet nod. The next part was just background hum until Emery looked directly at Noah. "Do you think the notary will suspect anything?" Noah replied. "Not if she thinks she signed it herself. People her age forget things all the time." The video kept rolling, but I didn't need to hear more. Skylar muted it and whispered, "They left the mic on all night. The camera above your table picked it up clearly." I didn't know what to do, but "I couldn't let you walk away without knowing." I nodded once. My voice didn't shake. "Send it to me." And when I stepped out into the cool night air, I already knew exactly where I'd go first. I sat on the porch long after midnight, elbows on my knees, hands clasped tight. The air had cooled, but I didn't feel it. I stared out at the yard I'd mowed for 20 years, the rose bush I planted when Emery was in 3rd grade, the porch swing Cade once broke, jumping off it like a cowboy. All of it quiet now. I pressed my thumb to the pad of my index finger, feeling the worn callus where I'd signed too many documents to count. The loan for Emery's college that she swore she'd repay. The lease for Cade's second attempt at independence. The account I opened to help fund Noah's business idea, the one he sold 6 months later, keeping every cent. I didn't ask for anything back. I didn't want them to feel small. I just wanted to be useful. But barely useful, she'd said. I stood slowly, knees stiff, and went back inside. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied. My hand found the drawer beneath the hallway table, the one with the scratched brass handle. Inside, I kept everything that mattered. Or used to. The folder was worn but organized. Birth certificates, my original deed to the house, insurance records, and a slim manila envelope I hadn't opened in months. I slid it out, unfolded the contents, and there it was. Power of attorney, prepared for Ms. Maristella Quinn. Drafted by Noah Hemsley, pending signature. My signature line was still blank. I remembered the day he handed it to me, smiling, saying it was just in case. I'd thanked him, tucked it away, and never thought to read it closely. Until now. I folded it back slower this time and returned it to the folder. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. But I was done pretending. I locked the drawer. Then I went to the cabinet, pulled out the little blue flash drive Skylar had given me, and slipped it into the side pocket of my coat. By morning, I would be at Lisette Bloom's office. Lisette's office was tucked between a flower shop and an old insurance agency that hadn't changed its sign in 20 years. Her name was barely visible on the door, just L. Bloom Attorney, etched in gold leaf that had started to fade. I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years, but she opened the door before I could knock twice. "Maristella," she said softly. "Come in." Her office smelled like paper and dusted leather. She gestured for me to sit, then took the folder I held out. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. She flipped through the documents in silence. Only her eyes moved quick, precise. When she reached the power of attorney, she held it up, tilted it toward the light, then set it gently on her desk. "This," she said, "tapping the signature line isn't yours. It's someone mimicking your stroke, but sloppily. My guess is they're assuming no one will check." She met my gaze. "Someone's preparing to move fast." I handed her the flash drive. Video, audio. The mic on the table caught everything after I left the New Year's dinner. Lisette plugged it in. She didn't flinch at the sound of Emery laughing or Noah raising his glass. But when the word notary came up, she clicked pause. "Amateurs," she murmured. "They're too eager." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "So what now?" Lisette leaned back. "Now we let them walk toward the edge. They think you're still asleep at the wheel. That's useful." "They're trying to shift everything out from under me," I said. "They're making it easy to catch them in the act," she replied. Her calm was unsettling, but also strangely comforting. She slid the papers into a new folder, labeled it in neat block letters, Q-Yo-1. I knew Lisette well enough to understand she didn't open a case file unless she meant to see it through. "I'll prepare everything," she said. "You do nothing. Just wait." And so I did until the flowers showed up on my doorstep. The knock came just after lunch. I hadn't opened the curtains yet. The house felt still, like it was holding its breath with me. When I opened the door, Emery stood there in a soft beige coat, clutching a bouquet of lilies like she'd just come from a hospital visit. Her smile was wide, practiced. Her eyes scanned the room behind me. "Hi, Mom," she said, stepping forward before I had a chance to say anything. "You've been so quiet lately. I thought I'd check in." I let her in. She walked past me like she still lived here. "I brought your favorites," she said, setting the flowers on the counter. "You always liked lilies, right?" I didn't correct her. She moved around the kitchen with ease, opening the fridge, commenting on how I needed more groceries. "You really shouldn't be here all by yourself, Mom. We've all been talking, and maybe it's time. Time for what I asked already knowing." She reached into her purse and pulled out a brochure. Bright colors, polished smiles, words like community and ease printed in soft fonts. It's just a tour, she said. No pressure. But this place has everything. Gardens, on-site medical staff, even a book club. Sounds like a resort. Emery smiled. You deserve something nice. You've done enough. Let us take care of you now. I looked at the brochure. The name of the place was printed in gold across the top. The Hollow Pines. I wondered if she'd rehearsed the pitch in the car. I walked her to the door, thanked her for the flowers, took the brochure, closed it gently after she left. That night, I sat at my dresser and opened the jewelry box I hadn't touched in years. Beneath a tangle of old earrings and a faded photo of me and Emery on her 5th birthday, I found the key. Taped to it was a folded paper. The second deed. A house they didn't know existed. And the next morning, I drove there before the sun came up. Lisette called me in the early afternoon. Come by, she said. Bring the folder. Her office looked the same, but the stack on her desk had grown. She didn't waste time. The medical note came first, she said, sliding a single page toward me. Claiming early cognitive decline. It's vague on purpose. No dates, no tests listed. Just enough language to sound official. I read it once, then again. My name sat at the top, spelled correctly. That felt deliberate. Next, Lisette continued pulling out another document, a home transfer request. Filed online last week. It hasn't been approved yet, but it's in the system. They're moving ahead, assuming you won't notice. My stomach tightened, but my hands stayed steady. And this, she said, clicking her mouse as a call recording. Noah didn't realize the line was recorded. He talks about transition timelines, about how once things are clean, you won't be able to reverse them. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the computer. I listened to Noah's voice, calm and confident, explaining my life as if it were a schedule to manage. They're treating everything like a board game, I said. Just moving pieces. Lisette nodded. Yes. But they made one mistake. What's that? They assumed the board belonged to them. She leaned back in her chair. Nothing has finalized yet. The medical note hasn't been validated. The transfer hasn't cleared. And every step they're taking leaves a record. Paper trails are unforgiving. I exhaled slowly. So we wait. We watch, she corrected. And we prepare. She handed me a new folder thicker than the last. Inside were copies, notes, timelines all neatly labeled, control organized into paper and ink. You still own everything, Lisette said. And the moment they push too far, we step in. I stood feeling taller than I had days ago. As I reached the door, she added, one more thing. If they think you're about to disappear, let them. That evening, I drove to the small house they'd never asked about, the one waiting quietly just beyond the city limits. The gravel cracked under my tires as I pulled up the old driveway. The hedges were overgrown, but the house stood just as I remembered, white trim, narrow porch shutters, a little sun-faded. No one had lived here in years. No one but me, briefly, before everything became too full with family. I unlocked the door. The hinges groaned softly, but the inside was still. Clean, furnished, untouched. The same lamp on the corner table. The same kettle beside the stove. A blanket I'd folded and left on the couch. I walked through, slowly letting the quiet settle around me like a second skin. In the cabinet above the pantry, right where I'd hidden it, I found the slim folder. The label read in my own handwriting, New Deed, executed December 15th. The ink had barely faded. I sat at the small kitchen table, the folder open in front of me. My name was clear, my signature real, witnessed, stamped. This house had never been part of the plan they drew up for me. I took out my phone and dialed the direct line to the bank. It rang twice. Ms. Quinn, the banker, answered. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, I said evenly. I need to update my primary residence. Effective immediately. She asked for confirmation, which I gave. Address, date of record, routing preferences. Done, she said after a moment. Is there anything else I can assist you with? I paused, then replied, No, that'll be all. I ended the call, placed the phone on the table, and looked around the room. There were no photographs on the wall, no notes on the fridge, no remnants of anyone else's schedule or needs, just space, just mine. I stood, walked to the back room, and opened the window. The air smelled like dry earth and distant pine. I let it fill the room. This house was off the books, quiet, unclaimed, and now it was home. I closed the window gently, then reached for the small lockbox beneath the bed where I'd kept the originals just in case. I kept the message simple. Dinner, same place. One more toast to the new year. My treat. They responded within an hour. Emery sent a heart emoji. Cade asked if there'd be wine. Noah just wrote, looking forward to it. Skylar met me outside the bistro 10 minutes before they arrived. She wore a crisp black apron and held a small remote in her hand. Everything's set, she said. It'll play from the moment you nod. Inside the table looked almost identical to the one from New Year's Eve. Polished silver, linen napkins, a candle flickering in a glass bowl of water. They arrived on time, all three of them wearing warmth like a well-fitted coat. Mom? This is so nice. Emery beamed, kissing the air beside my cheek. I'm so glad you're feeling better. Cade poured himself a glass before anyone sat. The old place looks sharp. Noah held the chair for me, smiling, like the boy I once believed he was. Dinner passed in practiced ease. Laughter. Harmless stories. They asked how I'd been, if I was getting enough rest, if I needed anything. When Skylar brought the dessert tray, she placed it carefully in the center, and with it the small remote wrapped in a folded linen. I picked it up. No toast tonight, I said quietly. Just one thing I forgot to share with you. They looked at me puzzled. Noah straightened. Emery tilted her head. I pressed the button. The TV mounted on the far wall flickered to life. At first, just the image of them seated at the same table. Emery mid-sentence. Cade topping off his glass. Noah leaning forward. Then the sound clicked in. Finally, she's gone. No one moved. Cade's hand froze around his spoon. Emery's fork clattered against the edge of her plate. Noah didn't blink, but the vein in his neck twitched. I sat back, folded my hands in my lap, and let the recording play, every laugh, every word, every detail they thought would disappear with time. And when it ended, the room held its breath. I looked at Skylar and nodded once. The screen went dark. No credits. No explanation. Just the faint hum of the television as it returned to black. I stood, slowly. I didn't rush them. Emery's mouth opened, then closed again. Cade stared at the table like the grain might offer him instructions. Noah was the first to look at me, his face pale, but composed, as if composure might still save him. The door behind them opened. Lisette stepped in her heels, quiet, against the floor. She carried a single folder, thick, neatly tabbed. She didn't look at any of them. She placed it on the center of the table and slid it forward. This is a notice of revocation, she said evenly. Effective immediately. She turned one page. This initiates a formal fraud investigation regarding falsified medical records, attempted asset transfer, and misuse of fiduciary authority. Another page. And this confirms that all shared account access, financial, legal, and administrative, has been revoked as of this morning. Noah stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. You can't. Lisette raised one finger. He stopped. Emery's voice cracked. You were spying on us, I finally spoke. No. The word came out calm, clear. I was listening. The weight of it settled differently than shouting ever could. I saw it in Emery's eyes the moment she realized there was no version of this conversation where she talked her way out. Cade pushed his chair back, the legs scraping loudly. "So what happens now?" Lisette answered. "Now you leave." Noah laughed, once sharp and hollow. "You think this ends here?" I met his gaze. "It already has." They filed out one by one. Emery didn't look back. Cade muttered something under his breath. Noah paused at the door as if expecting me to stop him. I didn't. When the door closed, Skylar quietly cleared the untouched dessert plates. Lisette gathered her folder. "I'll handle the rest." I nodded. Outside, the night air was cool and steady, and as I stepped into it, I knew exactly where I was going next. The house outside town never asked me to explain myself. There was no nameplate by the door, no mailbox stuffed with other people's expectations. The first morning I woke there, sunlight slipped through the thin curtains and landed on the kitchen floor. I made coffee and stood barefoot, listening to nothing but the quiet hum of the day starting. I baked because I wanted to. A small loaf, nothing elaborate. I ate it warm, standing at the counter, crumbs on my fingers. No one commented. No one waited for more. In the afternoons, I walked the gravel path that curved behind the house. My steps found their own rhythm. The fence along the edge belonged to the neighbor's property, and every day their dog followed me from the other side, keeping pace, tail low, never barking. We acknowledged each other without needing anything. I liked that. I unpacked slowly. Not everything. Only what mattered. Clothes that fit. Books I'd already read once and didn't mind reading again. The rest stayed in boxes, waiting to see if they were worth the space. Some evenings, my phone buzzed. Numbers I didn't answer. Messages I didn't open. They faded on their own. In the bedroom beneath the bed, there was a narrow drawer with a lock. Inside it, I placed the flash drive from the bistro wrapped in a folded receipt. I slid the drawer shut and turned the key once. I never played it again. I didn't need to. It had done its work. The house held its quiet, the way a promise holds, without ceremony, without witnesses. At night, I left the windows open just enough to let the air move through, carrying the sound of distant tires and the rustle of leaves. And when I lay down to sleep, I understood that this finally was what staying felt like.